Well, everybody, I'm the odd man out tonight because I can't find my reading glasses, so somebody else gets to read the comments.
God, take it away.
I liked it so much, I get to play it again. You call it my new toy, you know it, as Candy Ebling would find out. When I get a new toy, I play with it. And when it comes to broadcasting,
Oh my
I
goodness!
like to have a
I'm
great
keeping my comments to myself.
playground here. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. Everybody was listening to the music, Jeremy. So whatever you said, I don't remember. Don't care about. Anyways, welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. We got a doubleheader tonight. Following this broadcast, we got Fire Up Wisconsin. You wouldn't know how much Diet Mountain Dews I had, because if you did, I'd be a whole lot quieter, which that doesn't happen anyways. But meanwhile, this is our March Madness version of the broadcast. So glad to welcome back Will Vogel.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be back. Always love talking sports. 365, 24/7, 7 days a week.
Well, there you go. Boy, I'll tell you, you're amazing, because I wish the only thing I lasted 30 hours in a row was with the Rolex 24, but this isn't the Rolex 24. We'll get to that another time. But meanwhile, for 43 years and counting, George Eichhorn has been my sidekick, right, George? Welcome back.
Yep. Good to be back, Scott, and welcome to the program.
Boy, it was a lot of fun playing that thing twice. So, folks, it wasn't your imagination. It's yours truly, your host here, making sure I got to play it twice. And kudos to Candy Ebling for putting that display together. Chris Pirtle, my good friend, and a big part of this broadcast. Welcome back, Mr. Pirtle.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you, Michiganders.
There you go. And last but not least, we got Smoking Jeremy and his dog. All right, Jeremy.
Hi, everybody. It's me and Penny, just here to talk some sports, and she's here to be distraction.
There you go. That's all right. We've had young children on before. What's the difference if we have a dog on? Who cares?
As long as she don't bark, I'm good.
Well, that's right. She does. Well, then we'll deal with that.
She's fired.
Hardly. But anyways, stay on point here, because we do have Fire Up Wisconsin immediately following this show. We're going to talk March Madness, and we're not going to get into games tonight. It's really not what I have interested. I think the storylines are a whole lot better. But you know what? Chris Pirtle came up with some really good ones. So guess what, Mr. Pirtle? You get to go ahead and start first on these. How does that, my friend?
Sounds good.
All right, John Calipari, what were you telling me the other day when you brought this topic up? Put it out there for us, Mr. Pirtle.
Well, Scott, it amazes me. John Calipari, in I guess about his 13th year in Kentucky, he's won one championship there. And he's on record as saying that it's not his job to win championships, which is news to me. If you're the coach at Kentucky, I would imagine your goal every year is to win the national championship. Well, not him. And it's been this way for a while. UK hasn't found themselves out of the first weekend since 2019. And it just makes you wonder, how long does the administration at UK and the fan base put up with this?
Well, it's an interesting dynamic because, number one, we all know that he won it through the one and dones and the freshmen. So that was initially, and then he got Duke to copy it. And then if that doesn't even, we can take it a step further with the transfer portal. So, maybe the University of Kentucky is a whole lot different. Instead of Adolph Rupp, he wouldn't even think about doing a one and done. But Mr. Calipari figures, you know what? The best recruiting tool I have, and don't kid yourself, this happens a lot in college football, although some of them win multiple championships. Let's produce pro players, and that'll help the recruiting part. Chris, we talked about that earlier in the week. So I don't know whether the Kentucky administration has adapted to the salesman that Calipari is, because he's a good salesman, mind you, of producing pro players. And, nowadays it's hard to win multiple championships. And we'll get to that in a moment, Chris. But think about it, it's a much different thing. Why do you think a lot of these legendary coaches are leaving, like the Boeheims and a lot of the other ones that are no longer here? Because it's hard to acclimate. Where John Calipari, to me, hey, whatever it takes me to win a championship, fine. But he's proven that the consolation prize is producing pros. You agree, Chris?
Yeah, certainly is, yeah.
All right, Jeremy, some thoughts about this.
John Calipari has been a good coach, but he's kind of fell short a few times. Great having the one championship, but he needs to do better if he wants to stay where he's at.
Yeah, I'd say so. George?
Yeah, and I know I laid out that comparison last week when I was talking about Tom Izzo with one championship, but Tommy's been to so many Sweet 16s, and it keeps his program relevant all the time. It seems like year after year. Calipari, yeah, he's never a big fan of his, and I don't know. Maybe Chris, because the football program's taking a little pressure off him to win. I know that sounds kind of silly, but the fact is they have a good program now in football. But that being said, I don't like the one and done. I certainly am not a fan of it, but I don't see any way around it. And certainly he's a master of that one and done and trying to produce the best freshman, like you said, Scott, and then going on from there. But I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking in Kentucky, although the football program is a little bit better, but they still are enamored with Calipari, it seems like.
Now, before I turn over to Will Vogel, I'm going to tell you, I've been to Rupparena once against Florida Atlantic. Ironically, they're playing tonight. We'll get to them a little bit later. But Mike Jarvis was a coach at that time. If you haven't been to Rupparena, you've got to go there and put that on your bucket list, because I'm going to tell you this right now. Okay, you talk about a program that's run like a pro program. Go watch 20,000 people in Rupp Arena. And let me tell you, that Rupp Arena is the equivalent to the NBA atmosphere that they have in the Bluegrass State. Okay, Jeremy, is there something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, he was saying he didn't know how he'd change it. I think I would leave it one and done until you get to the Sweet 16, and then I would go to a best of 3 format, and then the finals be a best of 5.
Good luck. But all right.
I just think it would make for a more interesting tournament if you did it that way.
I do too, but if they haven't done it by now, they're not going to do it.
And you know what, Scott? Let's welcome Denzel Snipes to our chat room. Good to see you, true. Denzel. Thank you for being part of the chat. We're here.
There you go, Denzel. Good to see you again. And we enjoyed his participation last night on the Sports Exchange. So good to see you. So, all right, Will, I know you've been patiently waiting. Give us your take on this.
It's kind of weird that Calipari, a guy of his caliber, his coaching stature, up there with like when these guys were coaching, he was up there with Coach K, Roy Williams. He was known as one of the best coaches in Izzo and Boeheim. But one championship in 13 years, I'm sorry, that's mediocrity. I know you're producing guys who can go to the pros one and done and having these guys drafted. And it's an honor when you're a coach and you have these guys drafted. But it's weird because Kentucky, you would think, has the standard to win a championship or at least go to multiple Final Fours for multiple years. Like, I know the standard for North Carolina and like Duke and like other Michigan State and like other schools are championship or bust. Like, and I feel like that should be the mentality for Kentucky. And I feel like Rupp lived by that. And it's weird that Calipari doesn't live by that because he's a good head coach, but his teams are just not producing. And yeah, it's great to have draft picks, but when is enough? When is the school going to be like, hey, you know what? One championship in 13 years is not a good percentage. We want a guy who can get us to that next level, to elevate us to be championship caliber again, to make multiple Final Fours, multiple Elite Eights. Instead of having one championship in 13 years, that's just mediocrity in my eyes.
Well, to conclude this topic, I'll tell you right now, I think that eventually Calipari is going to go back to the NBA with the right situation, but I'll leave that for another time.
They thought about it.
Scott, can I interject?
Yeah.
Yeah, Calipari, right now his strength is not coaching by any stretch. His strength is recruiting, and that's the only reason he's been able to remain the coach at the University of Kentucky. They have the number 1 recruiting class coming in next year. But if there's nobody there to coach that talent, they're going to get the same result. It's interesting. Calipari made this statement in 2015 that it's not his job to win national championships. Could you imagine Roy Williams going to North Carolina and saying that exact same thing? Now, Calipari did say that the year after they went to the title game and lost to UConn, and 2 years previous to that was when they won the championship. So maybe he was feeling a little arrogant at the time, but 8 years later, if you haven't produced anything, it's not a good look.
Chris, you're not going to get anybody on this crew to disagree with you there. All right,
That's
George.
right.
I want you to read Denzel Snipes' first comment.
Yeah, man, that's a lot of basketball, Jeremy, that you're suggesting to add series to the tournament, but it could be NBA prep. They do play 82 games a season.
All right, let me go to his other one, and then we'll go from there. All right, he's got another one that I think is pretty cool. So, George, read that again, please.
Yep, Will, the same thing you are saying. They are going to do to Mike Tomlin in the NFL and say the same thing. You watch.
Okay. Fair comments. That's why they're up there. So, all right. So let's go on to the next topic because it's very related. Kudos to Chris for coming up with this one too. So, all right, Chris, let's take this a step further. All right. Legacy determined by multiple national champions. We'll go down the list. Okay. Bill Self, Bob Knight, Roy Williams, Jim Calhoun, and Billy Donovan. I mean, I'll just say one thing before we go to it. Tomizzo getting the Spartans to 25 in a row is unbelievable in this day and age. So with that said, Chris, why don't you elaborate on this one as well?
Well, I think if you're going to be one of the elite college coaches and look at back in history as an elite coach, you have to have at least two. Bill Self, Billy Donovan, Jim Calhoun with 3, Roy Williams with 3. As we like to say, there's levels to this. And right now, John Calipari, the reality is he's on the same level as Kevin Hawley, Tom Izzo, which isn't a bad place to be in. But Izzo gets more out of his teams than I think Calipari does. Tubby Smith, another one who's won one championship. To me, Calipari, if he wants to be known as an elite college coach, got to win at least 2.
Yeah, no debate from me. All right, go ahead, Jeremy.
I agree. If you want to be considered elite, going there 25 times in a row is an amazing feat in itself. But he's only won 1, and that was on the bum ankle of Mateen Cleaves.
Yeah, well, amazingly, collectively as a program, though, Michigan State's won 2 with Judd Heathcote, Magic Johnson. So at least the program itself has won 2. But yeah, I totally agree with you that Izzo still only has 1. George?
I'm not going to come down on Izzo on this one. I know that there's a stature of winning more than 1. I get it. But like you said, Scott, he's gotten them 25 years in a row. AKA Detroit Red Wings making the playoffs. How many years? 25 in a row or whatever it was.
Right.
He works under tougher circumstances. He's not getting the number 1 recruiting class every year in the Big Ten to come to East Lansing. I'm going to cut him a little bit of slack, and he's been to so many Sweet 16s and Final Fours. Mm-hmm. But I agree. I mean, I know he's not happy. He's not going to be happy until he wins another championship. That much I'll grant you. But I'm not going to put him in a class of a one-and-done coach. No way.
Okay, well, you're up.
I agree. Tom Izzo has a lot to work with because look at the Big Ten in basketball lately. Like Maryland was good this year. Michigan's been good in the past. Ohio State's pretty relevant. Northwestern comes out of nowhere, shocks everyone. Like, I agree with George. You have to cut him some slack. The Big Ten this year especially was a lot of fun watching basketball. And in the 90s, it was like Michigan State, Michigan. In the 80s, it was Michigan State. Like, basketball has changed. It's hard to get the top guy every single year, fighting with the UNCs, the Dukes, the Syracuses, the Kentuckys, and other schools like that. So right. I do cut some slack to Tom Izzo as well, because I think Tom Izzo, despite only winning 1 championship and having 25 straight appearances, I think Tom Izzo, hands down, is in a Mount, like, I'm not saying the main Mount Rushmore, but probably the second Mount Rushmore of greatest college basketball coaches of all time.
All right. I'll cut Izzo some slack, but I want to focus on the point that Chris brought up. I'm going to evaluate each of the ones that we talked about, Chris. Number 1, we'll start off with Bill Self, and Roy Williams probably should have won one in Kansas, but he didn't. But nevertheless, give Bill Self his due. He has won multiple ones. Bob Knight, I would have loved to have played for him. Well, you couldn't handle Bob Knight because you can't handle me. So, so you can't handle me. So Bob Knight would be 100 times worse than you. Roy Williams, though, to me is a guy who obviously comes from the Dean Smith, coaching tree. Right. And then Jim Calhoun did a great job with Connecticut building that program practically from nothing to what it is. And Billy Donovan, the reason why he did well is Florida's a fertile recruiting ground to get some of the best players. So I can appreciate that. And it doesn't hurt that he learned under Rick Pitino, who probably should have multiple ones, but I would give him an asterisk because he had one taken away from him with Louisville because he couldn't play by the rules, AKA he was a cheetah. No, not a cheetah as in the animal, but, in New England terms, a cheetah. Okay.
And Scott, another reason we should cut his horse some slack, it's been 23 years since they won that championship at Michigan State.
Yeah.
When is the last time a Big Ten team has won a championship? I remember Indiana win in 02. They lost in the title game. Ohio State in 07. They lost in the title game. Yeah. Michigan won in 13. They lost in the title game. The last Big Ten team to win the championship, ironically enough, was Tomizzo and the Michigan State Spartans 23 years ago. A long time.
Crazy.
And you got the last word on this subject because
yes,
we're putting an exclamation point to it. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is this topic here could go forever, but we're not going to. So I'm going to list a bunch of teams with the most NCAA tournament wins without winning a title. And I'm going to ask each and every one of you to pick one or two that could probably break that. Okay. Number one. Okay. What I mean by that is, according to Fox College Hoops, teams with most NCAA wins without a title. I will read down the list, and this comes from Fox College Hoops. I'm going to give each and every one of you just two teams to choose from, and then we'll move on because we have a lot to cover tonight. Well, Chris, I love going to you first, pal. So, all right, Purdue has 44 wins. Oklahoma's got 43. Illinois, 42. Gonzaga, 41. Notre Dame, 40. Kansas State, 37. Houston, 37. Texas, 37. Memphis, 35. And Temple, 35. Okay, Chris, give me two.
Two that I'm surprised at, or what?
No, in that list, Chris, give me two. Who do you think that could eventually break that route?
Was Gonzaga an option?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Gonzaga, I like them this year. I think they've got as good a chance to anybody as this year. Interesting that you mentioned Purdue and Illinois, two Big Ten teams. So I'm certainly not going to guess one of those teams. So let's go with Oklahoma and Gonzaga to answer the question.
Okay, Oak and Gon. Okay. On to you, Jeremy.
I think it's coming down to Kansas and Kentucky.
Kansas.
And that should be Kansas State, actually.
Kansas State, actually.
Oh, is Kansas out?
Yeah.
The Jayhawks? Wow, I missed that. Okay. Well, then I got Kentucky going. Who's the other one seed that I saw was good?
Well, no, I'm talking about teams that haven't won a championship in this list. Let me rephrase the question, Jeremy.
Okay.
All right, teams with the most NCAA tournament wins without winning a title is, and I say without, I'm going to go over the list one more time, okay? Purdue, Oklahoma. Well, Purdue's got 44. Oklahoma's got 43. Illinois, 42. Gonzaga, 41. Notre Dame, 40. Kansas State, okay, is 37. Houston, 37. Texas, 37. Memphis and Temple.
Houston and Kansas State, because Oklahoma can't win, and Purdue is Purdue.
So who's the other one? You got Kansas State and who?
Houston.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, George, you're next.
A team that is constantly there. They're always sniffing it, but they just can't do it. I agree with Chris. Gonzaga is my number one choice. And I'm going to go with Houston for my second choice. Houston's got a good team this year. And I'm surprised, Scott, like you said, they have not won it. So I'm going to say the Houston Cougars as my second.
Kelvin Sampson's done a really good job, though.
Yes, he has.
Although he's cheated too in the past, and he turned Indiana's program upside down as well as others. But he finally got figured out. In fact, he was out of the game for a while in the NBA until Houston brought him back. So, but according to Denzel Snipes, Houston is a year away. All right, well, you're up.
Hey, George, you know how Scott likes to say GML, Great Minds Think Alike, or GMTL? Well, we've got the same group, Houston and Gonzaga. I'm going to go real quick. Houston, they should have won in the 80s. Nothing against Valvano. They had a great team. Phi Slamma Jamma. Gonzaga's always sniffing it, but they're just that close, but they haven't gotten it. So I've got Houston, and I've got Gonzaga as well.
All right, looking at this list here, I don't know why. I would like to put Texas in there, but I'm definitely going with Gonzaga. I mean, Mark Few is there all the time, so that's inevitable. As far as Kansas State, remember once upon a time, though, I think you and I, George, went to Kansas State and Kansas over at the Pontiac Silverdome, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. On inside state rival at the Pontiac Silverdome.
Nice.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
NCAA tournament we went to. Yep.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm going to go Gonzaga, and I'm going to throw a curveball at you guys. Okay, I'm going to go Oklahoma.
Nice, Boomer Sooner.
In fact, you know what, Chris? I guess it's both of us, isn't it?
Yeah, that makes sense. Right.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go Gonzaga. I think if Gonzaga gets by UCLA, oh Nelly, and
Scott, you're allowed to copy my picks, no problem.
Yeah, it's funny. I wasn't even thinking about your picks until I got around to it. The only reason why Houston obviously didn't win it, Chris, because they couldn't make any free throws, and they said, "Hello, NC State." Phi Slamma Jamma is one thing, but ever heard of that thing called a free throw, where you have an uncontested shot and you can't make it? Clank, clank, clank. Now, so there we go. All right, so now we talk about a cheat. Okay, that Rick Pitino left Iona to go to St. John's University on a 6-year deal. In turn, Iona hires former Fairleigh Dickinson coach Tobinanderson, who's 51, to a 5-year deal. So what I'm going to do, Chris, is I want you and everybody else here on this crew here to evaluate both hirings at the same time.
Okay. Leaving Fairleigh Dickinson to go to Iona, I don't know how much of an upgrade that is. I don't know much about either program. I do know this. Fairleigh Dickinson was in the Final 32 this season, and they gave FAU a really good game the other night. So they were just a few points away from making the Sweet 16. Seems like a bit of a lateral move to me if you're that coach. As far as St. John's goes, with Pitino, I think it's a win-win. They need a good coach. He needed a good job. I like the hire.
And of course, let's talk about Tobinanderson. You're glad he left Fairleigh Dickinson to go to Iona. That was a quick hire.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Iona didn't waste any time going to the guy here. And I got an interesting tidbit here about Purdue and FDU, but all right, go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh, I think it's great hires. I think that they may be able to do something with the talent that they can bring in, but they are a mid-major team. So they're going to be one of those Cinderella teams if they do make it.
Okay, fair enough. George?
I think you're referring to Iona as the small team, right? Yeah. I mean, that was a good move by the Fairleigh Dickinson coach. I mean, I agree with Chris a little bit, though. You know, it seems sort of like maybe a lateral. I mean, Iona is a little bit bigger, I would imagine, but it's not a huge program. And then, of course, our buddy Pitino. I'm just not a Pitino fan. It didn't surprise me at all. St. John's is always looking for a big name as coach, and that didn't surprise me. Whether he's going to be successful or not there, I don't know. I think the jury's still out on that one, but I see why I see why he took it for sure. Big name, big profile, big program.
Okay, Will, you're up.
I'll start with Tobinanderson real quick. I always like the stories. Like, I know it hurts one program losing a coach to go to another, but a promotion is always good. Like, Tobinanderson got a new job because he led Fairleigh Dickinson far into the tournament, and he got rewarded with that with a new job, and he took it, and he's going to run with it. As for Pitino, I agree with George. Not a big Pitino guy, but you know what? Big East schools love getting these big coaches. Look at Georgetown. Right. They had Patrick Ewing. They thought, oh, we have one of our former players. We're going to be so good. They fired him. And then you look at the other schools like to hire the Big East loves to hire big names
right.
to their programs. So Yeah, I'm not surprised Pitino jumped on it because he was at Iona, or where was he? Iona?
Yeah, previously.
He was at Iona. And Iona is small compared to St. John's. St. John's is a pretty big school in New York. So we'll see. Do I think he'll be great? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, Will, the only thing I'll say about the situation with Pitino is Iona was a great place, okay, for Pitino to resurrect his coaching career. Remember, he left Louisville in a bad situation. As for Tobinanderson, I mean, come on. When you see some of these guys at these smaller places, okay, to me, I think it's important to understand that they're going to get hired, like you said, Will. So, I'm happy for Tobinanderson. The guy's 51. He's got his whole career in front of him as well. And to be able to win with Fairleigh Dickinson, you're doing awfully well to get them there, much less to the final 32, Chris, as you referred to. So, yeah, but here's the thing about Rick Pitino. He did a good job at the New York Knicks. He knows the landscape of the Big East really, really, really well. Okay. And he's a New York City guy. So if you're not coaching the Knicks, you might as well do the next best thing, St. John's University. And yes, the familiarity with the Big East is certainly there as well. So good stuff for you guys. All right. Well, you know what? There are two more topics. And, I know Will texted me earlier about a few predictions. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the updated scores that we have and let you guys predict the other ones since we're in real time here. All right. With that said, according to Front Office Sport, Purdue's men's basketball operating expenses last season was $2.3 million. $2.3 million for the team that has still 44 wins in their entire without winning a title. But here, Fairleigh Dickinson University. All right, you know what? We're gonna have a little bit of fun with this one. Chris, take a guess what their operating expenses. I'll guess.
$5 million.
What, for Fairleigh Dickinson? Do you understand the question?
Too high.
No, I didn't quite understand the question.
Okay, in other words, Purdue's men's basketball operating expenses last season was $2.3 million just to run that basketball program. You follow me? All right, so now, okay, Fairleigh Dickinson University, what do you think their operating expenses are?
$250,000.
How much?
$250,000.
Okay. All right, Jeremy, take a stab at it. You already know what Purdue's is, but what do you think Fairleigh Dickinson is?
$850,000.
Okay, well, everything's all over the map here. Now, wait to see about George. What do you think for FDU?
$550,000. 550.
Okay, what about you, Will?
400,000.
Gosh, you know what?
I'm going down to 100,000.
Well, what did you say initially, Chris?
I said 250, but I want to downgrade that to 100,000.
Yeah, but you know what? Even your 250 was better than the rest of them. You know what the number is? $166,000.
Oh my God!
Wow.
So $166,000 ended up winning. I think what did they won the? So I think they were the one. They knocked out Purdue, right?
They knocked out Virginia. They knocked out Virginia. Not Virginia. I'm sorry. Purdue, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah.
Right, so
and Purdue now, Scott, has lost to a 13, a 14, and a 16, all within the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So if there's a bigger David and Goliath outside of what UMBC and Virginia was, I want every one of you. Okay, yeah, I know. Well, you can gloat about that because you mentioned it before, and I have no problem with you doing that. Then this is as big a David and Goliath as you can. 2.3 million versus is greater than 166,000. And yes, for one particular equation, my math was right. Don't hold your breath. It stinks anyways, but whatever. But that was in front of me. All right. One more topic, then we're going to talk about a few games, Will. And the only reason why I'm doing it, because time is permitting us to do so. That's why I don't make any plans. I want to make sure that we are able to take care of the business at hand, and then anything else is all gravy. All right. With that said, speaking of Florida Atlantic University, once coached by Mike Jarvis, okay, they're 33-3. So will Dusty May of FAU get a bigger job? He's been there 5 years. They face the Tennessee Volunteers tonight around 9 Eastern time. Okay, what do you think? Do you think he's going to jump ship, or do you think he might be loyal to FAU? Chris?
It's a tough one. 33-3, what a year. Sweet 16, but like everybody jumps. We just saw our friend from Fairleigh Dickinson. So if the right offer comes his way, really.
What about you, Jeremy?
If he's offered the right price somewhere, he'll be gone.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, you talk to keep it simple, stupid, short, and sweet. Jeremy certainly defined that one. Of course, I know he's anxious to get on fire with Wisconsin like Oikhorn, but we're going to have some fun with games in a few moments. All right, George, what do you think? Does Dusty May take the
Dusty
lead?
May is going to stay. Dusty May is going to stay. That's my prediction.
Nice.
Okay.
At least one more season, Scott. I think he's going to stay.
What about you, Will?
I think if the job calls and it's a pretty decent big school, you take it and run with it, because you never know when those opportunities will arise. Because if he comes back next year and he doesn't do as well, then he's going to be like, why did I pass on this X school and stay another year? So I jump on it, because you never know when you're going to get those calls again, like I said.
All right, well, bear in mind, Florida Atlantic University is jumping up a class here. They're going to the American Athletic Conference, so that's obviously a much bigger change from Conference USA. Yeah, I don't know why I have a real weird feeling about this, but some reason or another, I agree with Eichhorn. I think he'd go another year, unless like Will says, that to
And
me,
it's an offer he can't refuse. That'd be different.
yeah, well, that's a different story.
Yeah.
How many times you've seen that scenario? All right, so let me go out there and find out what the.
Remember we talked about, Scott, on another show about Deion Sanders, and we were trying to predict whether he would stay.
I told you he was going on the first thing smoking into the bigger markets. Didn't I say that?
And we were talking about the same thing, only a different sport.
Yeah. But I said exactly that show. I said he will go on the first thing smoking to a bigger market in college before he ever considers going pro.
Yeah, and he
I
did.
agree.
All right, well, you guys ready for a few scores here? Okay, first of all, Michigan State and Kansas State are battling down to a one possession game. Kansas State right now leads the Spartans 80-78, 113 left to go in the second half rather. Hopefully I'll have a final before we go off air. The other game currently going on now, it's pretty, good luck, Arkansas. I have a feeling it's not going to be your year, but at least you've won championships. Connecticut 56, Arkansas 33. So that's what we have. And by the time everybody lets her know how they get out, one of these games will go final. I'll bring that out. So meanwhile, tonight's games, and you know what, Will, since you wanted to make predictions, we're going to lead off with you. Tonight, though, at 9 Eastern time, Tennessee ranked seeded number 4 against Florida Atlantic. At 9 o'clock, who do you have there, Will? You have Florida Atlantic or Tennessee?
As much as I'm happy Tennessee beat Duke, I've got to go with your boys, Scott. And near where my grandma lives, I'm going with FAU.
Boy, you're bold. I'll tell you, you may have a lot of, you may not have social media, but if the time ever comes that you do get it, you might have a few FAU followers listening to you on this broadcast. So,
I hope so.
Yeah, we'll see. Work on the social media first, Will, and don't fall into the old one-liner, because God delays does not mean that God denies. Make sure you don't delay on social media, but FAU fans will probably like you. Let's see if we can get another update on that score, because now you got me intrigued, Mr. Vogel. All right, where are we at? Well, it's 82-80 now in favor of Kansas State. They've changed a couple of buckets. All right, so as I mentioned, Connecticut 56-33. All right, what do you have there, Jeremy? Florida Atlantic or Tennessee?
I think I'm going to go with Tennessee because they're playing well. They usually get to about the Sweet 16 before they fail. So I'm going to go with Tennessee.
Okay. What about you, George? FAU or Tennessee? And you and I have seen FAU play football up over at Ford Field.
Yeah, we have. What a wonderful year. What a magical ride. 33-3, Scott. But they're going down tonight to the Volunteers. Tennessee by 5 tonight.
And okay, and we have you left, Chris, right?
Chris?
So go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to say FAU. Scott, it's the first year ever that 2 teams from South Florida made the Sweet 16. FAU and Miami this year. I'd love to say FAU. I can't do it. SEC power rules. Tennessee advances. They may play Alabama in the Final Four. And I'll tell you what, as we see Arkansas winding down here, they're not going to win this game, chances are. But if they would have, this would have been 3 straight years that Eric Musselman would have coached this team to the Elite Eight. As it stands, they're going to make 3 straight Final 16 or Sweet 16 appearances. It just goes to show how pathetic of a job John Calipari does at Kentucky. They need to fire off the quote Eric Musselman, get a real coach in there, and they might be back to winning championships.
Okay, then you know what? We'll go around the horn, but this time we're going to go start with you, Chris. Okay, tonight, 9:45 Eastern Time, Gonzaga, UCLA. Chris, who do you have? Gonzaga or UCLA?
I like Gonzaga. Something about them, they're due, and I like their style of basketball. I'm taking Gonzaga.
Jeremy?
I'm taking Gonzaga. They make the Elite Eight minimum every year.
Okay. Oh, I should put FAU out there against Tennessee. I think it's a Volunteers night, by the way. As much as I'd like to say both FAU, Tennessee, but what a ride it's been for dustymay and the turnaround job he's had over at FAU. All right. So, all right. You said you're going with Jeremy on this last one?
Zags.
Zags. What about you, George?
Gonzaga's a 3 seed. UCLA is a 2 seed.
Yeah.
They almost are identical in wins and losses. UCLA is way overdue to get to a final. I'm going to say they pull off the shocker. UCLA wins tonight.
All right, well.
Both these teams have had battles throughout the years, the Elite Eights, Sweet 16s. I got UCLA by 2.
You know, I'm going to go Gonzaga, so I don't know. I think they'd like to get off this list that I just read. All right. You know what? Let's talk about tomorrow's games. We're going to do it. We do it right. But before I do that, let me put a shout out to Dens. Okay. Go ahead, George.
Denzel Snipes saying, as far as the Big 12 goes, teams don't fear Kansas anymore. So Texas is creeping up too.
And also he says that Kansas is a year away.
Houston is a year away. That's my choice for breaking the jinx. Houston was one of my choices. Okay. They may be. Who knows?
And here, you know what? Denzel's on a roll. He says about Oklahoma has no future in sight. Didn't. Okay. And then the other part of that is make the NIT track. So, tell me how you feel, Denzel.
It's okay. Oklahoma.
All right. Well, all right. Let's go on to. No, that's funny. Jeremy, don't force me to lose my hat again. Okay.
Breaking news, Scott. They are going into overtime. Michigan State and Kansas State.
Wow.
First yeah, 5 minutes ago.
The tournament, isn't
I'm not prolonging the show 5 minutes, but they're not done. So Candy Ebling, look at that, overtime. Candy Ebling with her crack update. She's getting warmed up. Fire up, Wisconsin. All right. Tomorrow night, okay, we're going to lead off with Mr. Vogel. I'm going to give you 4 games, and you're going to start off with San Diego State, number 5, versus Alabama. Who you got, Vogel?
You got to go Alabama. They have the best player in the country, Brandon Miller. Give me Alabama.
Okay, next, you got Miami, Florida against Houston.
I've got Houston. Sampson's a hell of a coach. It's going to be a good game. Miami is a really good ACC team, fought with Duke all year, but I've got Houston.
Okay, and the batter of tons. Got Princeton versus Creighton, okay? Princeton is 16 and Creighton 5. So, all right, well, what do you got?
I've got to go with Coach McDermott and the Creighton Blue Jays.
And finally, Xavier and Texas. Okay. What do you got?
Man, that's a good one. Big East versus Big 12. Both have had great years. Both play in really tough conferences. I think the Longhorns have it. I got Texas.
Okay. All right, George, you're next.
All right. Repeat them again.
Sure. San Diego State against Alabama.
Alabama, all the way.
Miami against Houston.
Houston, the Cougars.
Okay. Princeton against Creighton.
Yeah, Princeton's like a Cinderella team to me, but Creighton's going to come up with that win.
Do you know what their nickname is?
I forgot.
I knew I'd get you on that. It's the Blue Jays.
He just said it. You just said it. And Will, you just said it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've
George
seen it
Eichhorn had a AARP moment. All
Yeah.
right, Xavier
X
AARP
is
moment.
going down. X is going down.
It's okay, George. It's
So
okay.
you're going with it. So you're going with Xavier.
No, I'm going opposite Xavier.
So you're going with Texas.
Texas Longhorns all the way.
Well, if you can't go opposite one, it's either A or B, not neither of the above.
It's Texas. I think my picks are the same as Will's.
Well, don't
They
worry.
are.
Don't worry, it's all recorded if it isn't. So
GML,
and live for that
think
matter.
alike.
And I haven't even give up the intro yet, but I'll do that. In fact, I'll actually do that right now. Just so everybody know here, since we're having a whole lot of fun on the Sports Exchange, that the audio version of the Sports Exchange can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify.
You finally caught me.
It's your podcast. You guys are killing me. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. No, you don't have to go ahead and tell me the other stuff because we even put it in there where I can read it now. All right. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? Send topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. If you want to advertise, call 954-304-4941. We are live, as Brent Musburger would say, but not on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube. But I had to get the live part out there anyway. So, all right. All right, Jeremy. Since everybody got lost in the 4 games, I'll bring it back. All right, Jeremy. Steve Fisher's old school San Diego State against Alabama.
Alabama.
Okay, I like your orders. All right. Miami against Houston.
Houston.
Okay. Princeton against Creighton.
Creighton.
Okay. Last but not least, Xavier in Texas.
Texas.
Okay. All
Wow.
right, Chris. Chris, you're next.
Okay.
San Diego State
Alabama, SEC power. They used to be
I'll
a
read it
football
to
school. Now they're a basketball school.
Here, let me read them to you. I've been consistent with everybody else. I'll do it to you. All right. San Diego State against Alabama, Chris.
SEC, Alabama.
Okay. Miami against Houston.
Miami gets the upset. One South Florida team has to make the Elite Eight.
Princeton and Creighton.
Creighton, the Blue Jays.
Yeah, George. Just remember, you'll be quizzed on their nickname the next time. Okay.
Blue Jays.
Yeah, okay. There's a team in Toronto called the Blue Jays.
Oh, yeah. I think
And by
I've
the
heard
way,
about it.
George, you know where they're located at? Creighton?
Rogers Center in Toronto.
No, I'm talking about the Creighton Blue Jays.
No, where are they at?
They're in Omaha, Nebraska. Just so you know. Okay, Xavier in Texas, Chris.
Yeah, just take 80 westbound, George. George Eichhorn is rarely wrong, but he was wrong about this game. X doesn't go down. Xavier gets the win. And also, Scott, drop the X on that. It's just Xavier. A team from Cincinnati hasn't been to the Final Four since 1992 when Nick Van Exel and the UC Bearcats went there. I'm predicting Xavier gets the victory tonight, beats Miami on Saturday, and advances to the Final Four.
Wow.
Oh, man, look at this guy. All right, well, I guess I'm up next, okay?
You are.
It's pretty hard to go against Alabama, so I'll stick to that, although I wouldn't be surprised to see San Diego State give them a run for their money. But I'll go with Alabama. But you know what, Chris, you're not the only one that thinks Miami. Miami gave Indiana a beat down like no other. And I'm going with the Hurricanes. And by the way, I should be out in Miami. I'm hoping to, help permitting, to do their pro game out in Coral Gables. But I'm going to go with Miami over Houston. Houston's going to have to wait another year. Princeton against Creighton, okay? We have a Tigers and a Blue Jays sighting, not in Major League Baseball, but on the hardwood. I'm going to go Creighton. And, I don't know why. I have sympathy for Texas, so I'm going to go Texas over whatever you want to call it, Xavier, Avier. I don't even care what it is. So, and no, I'm not giving you a Final Four pick because you know what? We could do it next week. Got to leave a little bit out there. So, Mr. Pirtle, you better go out there and write down what your final pick is so you can reinforce it next week. It may not be a standalone show, but we will talk about Final Four picks. I like your premature guts, knowing that these weekend's games haven't been completed, but good stuff for every one of you guys. So, I'll tell you what. Yes, Will, every now and then we can bring up games, but as we all know, the main objective here is to make sure we cover everything at first. Lesson to be learned, teaching moment. No reason for you to have a heart attack because too many people do it anyway. So Will Vogel, we're trying to mentor him, okay, to not act like Aaron Rodgers, because he does the word relax in ways I've never seen it. But we need to make sure we instill, it's a veteran crew, that Will Vogel has a Lion King. Is it the Lion King? Hakuna Matata, no worries. Okay, well, I hope I can drill that in your head until my heart's content. But that's
I'm just hoping I did good tonight for this tryout.
Yeah, we'll see. So, all right. Meanwhile, this concludes this edition of the Sports Exchange, but it doesn't, because we'll let everybody know how they get hold of them, and then I'll give everybody the information following thereafter. All right. Well, make it quick. Don't give me the grocery list of all the million shows you're on. Just pretty much summarize a few of the key ones. All right.
I'll just say the main one I'm on. I'm on Basket Bros with Scott, Jacob, Denzel, Dom, and Jacob, and occasionally George Eichhorn. So, yeah, find us on Sunday nights on Sideline Sports.
Right, and do a good job filling in when we need you every so often. You're our pinch hitter here on our shows. Good stuff. You've come a long way from where you were at. It's always good to see progress, right, Chris? Because obviously, you and I have seen a lot of young broadcasters like George. And the main thing is it's all about progress. As we're in Canada, they'd say progress. Okay, but whatever. All right, Chris, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
You can follow me on Twitter at Vero Sports, or you can look for me on Facebook, Chris Pirtle.
Very good. All right, Jeremy, you know the drill.
You can find me on the SouthFloridaTribune.com underneath the Motor City Tribune heading, or with their list of authors with great guys like Scott Morganroth and George Eichhorn and myself, Jeremy Ballrick. You can also find me on the South Florida Tribune channel any night Scott needs me. It could be on Inside the Pigskin, could be the Sports Exchange, could be Fire Up, whatever. I can be there. Then you can also find me on my channel, Kneecap Biting with Smoking Jeremy B, where I talk about the NFL every other Wednesday during the off season, and every Friday I do the Detroit Lions Fan Cave chat. Stop in, check me out. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook, and Gmail. It's smokingjeremyb@gmail.com if you ever want to come up with a topic about either the NFL or the Lions, just to talk football.
All right, George, you got a book to promote, right?
I do. It's called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, and we cover a lot of basketball in here as well. Kelly Chapuka's in there, and George Blaha, and Dick Vitale. Detroit's contributed quite a few to the broadcast ranks in basketball. And Scott Morganroth, our host of this program, is in there interviewing Muhammad Ali and Jimmy Connors. There's a link to the book, to buy the book, on the South Florida Tribune. I also write for the Motor City Tribune. I write for the Detroit Monitor, and I'm also a part of the 108 Stitches program and Fire Up Michigan as well. Looking forward to Fire Up Wisconsin after this one, Scott. You can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com or on Facebook. Look for me under my name, George Eichhorn. Thank you.
All right, so you know what, Jeremy? You're going to read the ticker, but I'm going to let everybody know there.
Oh, my God, really?
Yeah, you're
going to make me
handle it. But hold on. I'll let everybody know on Twitter if you want to find me at Tribune South on Twitter as well. And also www.southfloridatribune.com is a website. Kudos to Candy Ebling. She does a remarkable job putting it together. I need to save my voice. So then again, I have no excuse because Eichhorn and Jeremy get to use theirs too later. So I'm dragging these two guys over with me to Wisconsin. We have a one-way ticket over there, okay, through StreamYard and all this other good stuff. All right, so yeah. Go ahead, Jeremy. I'll wait for you.
I'm waiting for the ticker to get to the beginning because I don't know it by heart yet, but I like mouthing it when you talk.
You've been with me long enough. Hey, the ticker is what it is. All I can tell you right now. It's pretty cool to actually go out there and be able to see games in real time and do all that business. So,
Now, I'm straining, so if I mispronounce something, it's because I can't read it. The audio version of this show can be heard on the iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button, like, comment, share on YouTube, South Florida Tribune channel. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast, want to be a guest, send a topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise, call 954-304-4941. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube.
Very good. There you go. That
Good
wasn't
job.
too hard.
Good job.
But meanwhile,
It read like stereo Japanese instructions.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because everything was blurred. I was guessing.
Oh, you're doing good. Hey, listen, you know what? We're going to leave everybody on this note here with our promotional video to give you an idea how many different shows we have, because we have a lot of them, and one of them will be on in approximately 15, 20 minutes. So meanwhile, on behalf of Will Vogel, George Eichhorn, Chris Pirtle, Smoking Jeremy B., and yours truly, the Motor City Madmouth, my name is Scott Morganroth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. We have a bunch of episodes coming up next week, so go out there, and if you subscribe, you'll get the notifications about who's on deck. So we'll let you go out with our incredibly up-to-date video. Thanks to Candy Ebling, and we'll catch you the next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Don't forget.